Hello, this is News Today. Coming up, Noguchi Memorial Institute for Medical Research discovers 2 plant compounds with capability to provide cure for sleeping sickness. In business, U.S. President Barack Obama is open to broad budget talks and potential short-term debt limit. Also ahead, Chair of the Africa Union Commission signals she could ask the United Nations Security Council for a deferral of the International Criminal Court case against Kenyan leaders. And I am Kemini Nyamani, and I'll bring you details of these stories and plenty more over the next 60 minutes. To stay. Right, so 60 million people in rural areas of East, West and Central Africa are at risk of contracting sleeping sickness. The Noguchi Memorial Institute for Medical Research, in collaboration with partners, has discovered 2 plant compounds which could provide a cure for the disease. Marion Tourist report.
Human African trypanosomiasis, sleeping sickness, is a parasitic disease of humans and other animals caused by protozoa of the species Trypanosoma brucei and transmitted by the tsetse. There are 2 subspecies that infect humans, TB gambescens and TB rhodesiense, with the former accounting for over 95% of reported cases and the latter accounting for the remaining. The disease is endemic in some regions of sub-Saharan Africa, covering areas in 36 countries with more than 60 million people at risk. A recent study estimates that 69.3 million of the total African population is at risk of contracting sleeping sickness, with 1/3 of this population being at very high to moderate risk, and the remaining 2/3 at a low to very low risk. The Noguchi Memorial Institute of Medical Research and partners have discovered 2 new plant compounds that could provide a cure for the disease. Irene Ayi is the head of the parasitology department at Noguchi.
We at Noguchi in the parasitology department are doing with support from JICA and JST. They are sponsoring and we are in collaboration with them, of course, equal partnership, and also with the CSRPM at Mampong, and then another department in the institute. Most of these drugs that are available have side effects that affect the kidneys and other organs of the body, very toxic sometimes. So far, Mampong has provided us with about 113 plant extracts, and we have screened all of them, and 8 of them have been found to have very high activity against the trypanosomes in culture. 2 compounds were found to be new. That has not been described anywhere yet. And out of these 2 compounds, we have further screened 2 of them. We haven't found a cure, but we have found a herbal compound that is very much active against trypanosomes and has very low and desirable toxicity.
Symptoms of the disease include fever, swollen lymph nodes, muscle and joint pain, headache and irritability. In its advanced stages, the disease also attacks the central nervous system. These problems can develop over many years. If not treated, the patient dies. The institute is hopeful that, barring any glitches, they could discover a cure or a prophylactic in the next 3 years.
So we have started some mice experimentation, but it's not yet complete. And in fact, depending on what the medicine or the extract can do, you may choose different routes of infection or different methods of assessing whether the drug will be prophylactic or it will be curative. And so right now we cannot say whether it's curative or prophylactic. Prophylactic means that if you administer it before the animal is infected, is it able to clear or stop progression of disease? And if it's curative, it means if you are already infected and then you take the drug, it's able to clear the parasites. Yes, and so far that's what we are doing. We are designing experiments to check whether our active compound, which has very low toxicity, also will be curative or prophylactic.
Marian Toure, Joy News.
The Lower Manya Krobo Traditional Council says it is mobilizing its citizens to take over key national installations within the traditional area if government fails to hold assembly elections by 25th of October this year. The Traditional Council last week served notice it would declare self-government for the Kroboland following the suspension of assembly elections since 2010. Manasseh Yasuriawone visited the area and reports that some traders, in fact, are ready to start paying their taxes to the traditional authorities instead of government.
Edna Laje, a charcoal seller at the Gomenya market, laments the plight of traders of the market. She is one of the traders who recently refused to pay levies to the Lower Manya Krobo Municipal Assembly in protest against what they term unfair treatment from the assembly. She says their plight is worsened by the fact that they have no assembly members through whom to channel their grievances to the municipal assembly.
Almost across say your new assemblyman. And the assemblyman, your name is Bibian Coso. A assemblyman were ha, Oben will say, but I have no and yet Obequa assembly, no by Yama, your new assemblyman. And you two no more, you know, cry, your new baby, a two no yet. And your penny for Yahinfono, or Moca Sadiano. And it's over your assemblyman, my near assembly, and Mr. Baum is a baby Coso Pepe.
The traders are not the only people worried about the suspension of assembly elections since 2010. The chief of Akuse and Public Relations Officer of the Manya Krobo Traditional Council, Nene Asada Aho I, says the stalemate began in 2010 when some 7 electoral areas within Kroboland were added to the Dangbe West district.
There was a time I had to meet with the Deputy Local Government Minister, Honorable Yimonoke Ajikun. He told me categorically that they have invited, he has invited Honorable Tetagbo to see the EC in Lower Manya to fix a date for the election. Unfortunately, we didn't hear anything. I met with the chief director, local government chief director, and he told me that something will come out. Fortunately, a week later, we had a letter that the president has given a clearance, presidential clearance, that dated 28th June this year, authorizing Electoral Commission. The letter was signed by Dr. Raymond Atuguba, authorizing Electoral Commission to organize an election at the Lower Manya Krobo Municipal Assembly. 2nd September to Kromagui wrote a letter to Electoral Commission reminding them of the letter from the president's office. All attempt, in fact, they didn't want to listen to us at all.
He said June last year, the Supreme Court ruled the areas belong to Manya Krobo, but all attempts to have assembly elections in the area failed. Currently, the assembly is managed by an interim management team led by the municipal chief executive appointed by late President Mills.
We are fighting for our constitutional right. It's not a threat. You see, are you getting me? It's not a threat. It's our constitutional right because we are also part of Ghana. And if now a president will issue or will authorize Electoral Commission to have the municipal assembly election done in Manya, and they will not do it, it means the Electoral Commission is not taking orders from the president.
But it appears all the agitations between the Manya Krobo and Losudoku traditional areas have something to do with the Kpong Waterworks and power generating plants. As part of the self-government declaration, the Manya Krobo Traditional Council says it will take over the collection of all levies and taxes from the assembly. Some market women say they are ready to start paying levies to the traditional authorities.
Ya betu ama hinifo no mu eto se se yetu a mu de be ye bibia ama na we ayetu ya no de enfaso bia ni so omo age adi keke.
We will start to collect levies, so and so, tolls and so from Manya. They shouldn't forget that the pump dam, we have pump generating plant or pump dam is in Lower Manya, municipal. Then the Kpong Waterworks to the same. We have Odubrase to the same. So we have the resources. And if we can govern ourselves, we can govern all these resources. In fact, it's enough for us to use as our resources.
But do they have the men?
You see, as I'm saying, it's not a threat, but we are fighting for our constitutional right. We want the government to come out boldly and tell us that, oh, this and that, today or tomorrow, we shall do this thing. Then we have no problem with them.
Manasseh Awini Azuri's report.
Now, a window of opportunity has been opened to 16,188 applicants who would not have gained admission to Polytechnic this year because they had D7 and E8. This Genoops is not happy about. We'll talk about it in a bit, but now let's go back to our earlier story where Manya Krobo has given government up to 25th October to wean itself, to organize assembly elections, or it will wean itself of the rest of the country when it comes to governance. Joining us by telephone is Eric Osai Ojuro. He's a local government expert to help us understand how all of these can be put together. Good morning, Eric. Good afternoon, rather. Hello, Eric.
Hello, yeah, I'm on the line.
Right, what reading do you make into this move by the people of Lower Manya Krobo?
I think Lower Manya Krobo has. I think they are gradually running out of patience. But I would still encourage them to work within the remit of the law. You know, we are a unitary state, and in governance system, it will be extremely difficult for a local government to secede itself from the national government. The issue at Lower Manya is all about organizing elections, getting them to have their assembly members, so that they can be running like any other district in Ghana. And what I hear is that the Electoral Commission said they've submitted a budget on that to government. I would say that government should have to hasten the process and then make sure that this election is conducted. Because if not, we are depriving the people of Lower Manya from actively participating in the participatory democratic process that we have in this country, which is not the best. What I would say is that the people of Lower Manya should exercise patience. They have come out with their cards on the table, giving the government up to 21st. I believe that the Ministry of Local Government, together with the Electoral Commission, would work around the clock to make sure that this issue is resolved. But it is really not very pleasant for local government.
Will it be illegal for them to make this move if really they are able to wean themselves of the rest of the country?
Yes, it is illegal and unconstitutional. So that move is illegal.
Right.
And I think they don't intend carrying their intentions out, but then they want to use this as a threat, or they want to use it as a base to compel government and other stakeholders involved to conduct the election. This issue has been hanging for some time, and I think we should resolve it once and for all so that we can give the people of Lower Manya the opportunity to also participate in governance.
I believe I can safely say that this may not be an empty threat, because the people of Lower Manya Krobo, when our own Manasseh visited the area, the market women are ready to pay taxes to their traditional council instead of the mandated institutions in the district.
Yeah,
should this happen, what kind of results are we going to get at the end of the day?
Should that happen, it means we are gradually failing in our decentralization. But that is not the ultimate aim. So that is why we should be able to do everything possible to prevent it from occurring. Because once Lower Manya is able to do that, you may get other district assemblies following suit, which shouldn't be the case. So my position is that we should act almost immediately to make sure that we resolve this issue. I believe the key institutions involved can resolve this issue. Well, we are talking about only one district out of the 216 district assemblies. So the funds will be made available to the Electoral Commission for them to conduct the election.
What does this say about our decentralization process?
My sister, I think this one is an isolated case because the issue went to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court made a ruling on it, and then after that, what is left is for Electoral Commission to conduct the election. This takes it out of the mainstream decentralization process, especially the one managed by the Ministry of Local Government. Now it is a financial issue. So for me, I think that decentralization is on course, but we will not have achieved our objective if we don't get Lower Manya on board, because it is also one of the important assemblies in the Republic of Ghana. So for me, we should work our way out to make sure that this issue is resolved.
What would it take for assembly elections to be held in the district?
I'm sure they need the voters to register. They also need resources to be able to compile the list and then identify the polling stations. And they need to also prepare them. I think the Electoral Commission is best placed to respond to this one. But I think that the money we need will not be that material compared to what we spend on general presidential elections and parliamentary elections, or even if we were to conduct general district level elections nationwide. Democracy is expensive, but this type of democracy, we need it to improve popular participation in governance. If we don't do the Lower Manya one, it is a test case. It is likely to affect our decentralization.
And you think by 25th October, government could be able to hold these assembly elections?
I'm not holding big for government, and I can't speak for government. But my view and my thinking is that even if the elections cannot be conducted by the 21st, I'm expecting that people in authorities may have heard they should move in to give out fines or start initiating moves to suggest to the people of Lower Manya that they have heard their petitions and they are taking steps to address the issue. Even if the election cannot be conducted on the 21st, they should be heard. They are also Ghanaians. And for me, I think the issue has been dragged on for far too long. We better take action on it to give them the elections they need.
Thank you very much, Eric.
You're welcome.
Eric Ojuro-Osai is Dean of Studies, Institute of Local Government Studies. And earlier I told you about how a window of opportunity has been opened to some 16,188 applicants who would not have gained admission to polytechnics this year because they had D7 and E8 in some subjects in the West African Senior School Certificate Examination, WASSCE. Now, an agreement has been reached among the Ministry of Education, the National Council for Tertiary Education, the National Accreditation Board, the Conference of Rectors of Polytechnics, and the National Board for Professional and Technician Examinations to admit applicants with D7 and E8 who do not meet the minimum entry requirements. However, the only condition is that once admitted, the applicants will have to undertake an access course for 3 months as they study alongside those who meet the requirements. The decision not to accept applicants with D7 and E8 would have crippled polytechnic admissions this year. That's because out of the 19,645 applications they received, only 3,457 qualified for admission. Last year alone, the 10 polytechnics were able to admit 47,294 students. In the studio with me is Amponsa Menu. He's coordinating secretary for the Ghana National Union of Polytechnic Students. And we'll quickly, I understand they have some reservations with this too. We'll quickly understand where they rope in as far as this discussion is concerned. Thanks, Amponsa, for your time.
Thank you very much.
Right, and so now you were able to fight for D7 and E8 applicants to be admitted. They will be given a 3-month course. We understand exactly what the 3 months assessment is, but generally, what are your thoughts on this kind of response you got?
Okay, thank you very much. We are happy that such an intervention has been made. I think the issue we are picking with that as a union is the sort of communication being put out to the public as the reason for which the regulation was relaxed. You know, polytechnics did not go to plead for such an intervention because we were turning white elephants if the policy was made to stay. What we sought to do was to make a case for the ordinary Ghanaian students whose dream of higher education was being shattered because of this policy. Now the guy has a brilliant resource because he has a common pass in a particular subject. He wasn't allowed to enter tertiary education. So that is what we said. If you say the guy is not good enough, give them to us. We will introduce them, we will pass them to the access program, refine them, and render them fit for the program.
And I think you've had what you wanted.
What we want.
Let's understand this 3 months assessment.
Okay, what we understand it to be for now is that as they are introduced to the HND programs, they will run concurrently with that a 3 months program that will prepare them to retake and better the common passes they have in their core subjects that could have rendered them unqualified in the first place to pursue the program. So that is the whole idea about the access program now.
Won't that be quite a task? And perhaps resources could have been used in other areas of school work. For instance, if they had just accepted the students and pushed them on, and there are always deferrals in tertiary education, why would we need to waste resources and then run concurrent assessment courses while you're making them go through the regular HND course as well?
See, in the first place, that was the argument we were making as students. That once we have passes as no failure, we should be made to go through the program. If we go and then we exhibit academic non-performance, you are withdrawn. But the regulators in their wisdom are saying that the D7 does not meet standards. And so we still had to devise a way of getting them enrolled in higher education. And that is why we got the access course introduced.
Was this decision taken in conjunction with GNUPS?
Oh, yes.
Were you on the discussion table?
We were not present at the meeting, but we actually tabled a petition for such a meeting to be conveyed. So our rectors went there to make our case for us.
And so now that you've been able to get that, how many more students would we be able to admit into our polytechnics?
You know, as the story rightly said, 16,000 and over students would then be admitted with a D7.
Do we have the facilities to run a concurrent assessment course for all these 16,000 students?
Oh yeah, all these things were factored before the decision was arrived at. We have the facilities there, and that is why it was paining us that Ghanaian students must stay in the house when the facilities are there to train them. So that is it. And then my dear, one of the impressions I also want to correct is that by seeking to relax the rule does not mean polytechnics are lowering our standards. We are not, and we have never before lowered our standards. Polytechnics, we are noted for the quality products we put out there. The performance of our graduates on the job market is there to attest to it.
Right. That we know. I think we have come to understand that. But another problem for people who might want to go to the polytechnics is the fact that I think it's been one of the issues raised earlier this year. You know, the fact that you're done with polytechnic, you want to go to the university and you have to start afresh. What's been the state of the fight against that now?
Currently, there's a petition on the desk of the Minister for Education on that. You see, now included in the new regulation issued by NAB and NCT was that after you are done with your HND and then you have a minimum of second class upper, you can join the university for top-up provided you have 2 years working experience. And we are arguing that a lot of considerations were not factored into the decision. We are in a nation whereby employment has become a problem. And you say that the boy after school should go elsewhere, find employment for 2 years. the public should not forget that included in the course structure for polytechnics is 6 months compulsory industrial attachment. If you do not do that, you don't graduate.
Okay.
After that, you have a 1-year compulsory national service, and this constitutes enough working experience to let you join the universities.
And so in your petition, what are you asking the minister to take a look at?
We are telling the minister that if working experience is what is required, then the 6 months compulsory industrial attachments plus the 1-year compulsory national service after graduation should constitute enough working experience to let us join to do the top up for degree. Because if you decided to join the university straight away, you do it 4 years without going to seek any job experience. It is the same award that is going to be given to the top up students. So why should students be made to take 7 years to complete the degree program because they chose polytechnic as a route? We think such regulations are not being fair to technical education, and for that matter, polytechnics in Ghana.
Has it received any attention at all? Because I haven't had much of it.
Well, we raised all these arguments together with the D7 to the ministry. When the meeting was called, we don't know what informed them, but they decided to table only the D7 matter. But we are still pursuing it as a student.
Well, why do you think that was not tabled?
Well, we are, as I said, we are still pursuing the matter. For now, I do not want to insinuate or cast speculations in it, but we are still pushing the matter forward.
Thank you very much, Amponsa.
Right, thank you too.
Amponsa Menu is coordinating secretary for the Ghana National Union of Polytechnic Students. We've been talking about a few issues concerning polytechnic education here. Let's stay on education. And students from second cycle, let's go on to some other education stories. And the implementation of the Disability Act 715 still hangs in the balance, as almost 90% of public institutions and buildings do not have disability-friendly passageways, though there have been efforts to promote the rights of persons with disabilities. Many still face great challenges accessing public facilities. Yafusu Achimfi reports a new public campaign is in the offing to give some respite to disabled persons, but questions about its sustainability are begging for answers.
A routine inspection of some educational facilities in the country reveals that disabled persons are marginalized in one way or the other in accessing education. Most schools do not have desks specifically designed for wheelchair users, and access to washrooms in schools are totally not disability friendly. This situation has made it somewhat impossible for disabled students to be fully accepted in regular schools. Kelvin Asare is one such person whose school's environment has not been friendly at all. The 11-year-old boy, who hopes to become a doctor in future, notes he sometimes wants to quit school due to the challenges he faces.
When you want to wee-wee, how are you able to go to the washroom?
I am in Cotaret no. I am a bomb pampers, I am doing. I can't go to the classroom.
You can't go to the classroom? Yes. What happens? How is the classroom like? How is the compound like?
Baby, I'm a fan, so I born one time. Me for Panama from Tom Pesa.
Although Kevin's mother says she tries to prepare him well for school due to the current situation, she would have preferred a friendlier environment for her child.
One hope concern be obey to me. I could di awesa obedi nyina sana wabefi. Sansa akwala mu no ne mu yedru. Se me sa problem ni to teacher ni bi so a me fi se be sansa mankasa sana me se bre no. Me ntumi fa how be so nkonkoto obi so. Me pese school mo mu sesi school mo mo level school mo. Na mo tumi ye won so won ayare fo si mo tumi ye omo toilet. Sana be obey to me the wheelchair na nkasa kra ye area inside. Na wa
Kelvin is not alone. Emmanuel also faces the same challenge, but for him, his brothers have been very supportive. He wants structures in his school to be made disability friendly.
Toilet dying. No more
Kelvin and Emmanuel perhaps can now heave a huge sigh of relief. The Enlightening and Empowering People with Disabilities in Africa campaign seeks to address the shortfalls of unfriendly facilities for disabled persons in schools. The campaign intends to throw more light on the need to make provisions for disabled persons in schools and, in effect, help make effective the Disability Act.
And make sure that the building plan is in accordance with the law.
This huge number of disabled persons means government and civil society cannot neglect them, as their contribution to the growth of the economy cannot and must not be overlooked. Yafusua Jemfi for Joy News.
Students from second cycle institutions in the West and Central regions have been schooled on King through experiences that are aimed at demystifying science and mathematics that are taught in schools. In the last of the robotic competitions held at the Agri Memorial Senior High School in Cape Coast, the students were taken through practical experiences to boost their confidence and the learning of science and mathematics.
The Ghana Robotics Academy Foundation, GRAF, with the support of the UN's Embassy and other partners, has been holding series of competitions on robotics science for Ghanaian high school students across the country. Over 100 teams from all 10 regions of Ghana took part in the competition, aimed at boosting interest of students in mathematics and science and to help students transfer science theories into real-life events. The final round of the nationwide competition was held for schools from the Western and Central regions. The senior robotics engineer, Dr. Ashite Trebi Olen, throws more light on the rationale for the competition.
Our goal is to get kids to pursue careers in science, technology, engineering, and math. And we basically give them projects throughout the year. You're just seeing a slice in time of this is the final event for the year. So we train them, we take the basic theory they are doing in classroom, and we give them real-life challenges so that they can apply the basic the theory, so that they can know that actually the theories they're learning in class can be used to solve real-world events. I think our expectations have been exceeded, starting from the north all the way through Ashanti to Greater Accra. And in Accra, we had actually the first time we had juniors, 8-year-olds, building robots and getting them to run in less than a few months. That was very impressive. It tells us that we have a very bright future in this country in terms of technology if we have the appropriate environment.
Students were excited at the opportunity to pursue science and mathematics.
It has also helped me to think critically about certain situations and how you can solve the problems using basic things around us. For me, I always had a passion for making stuff and trying to make things work. So for me, it has actually boosted my energy and made me more passionate about making stuff to make the world a better place.
It has actually boosted my confidence in going for a science course, that's especially engineering. Because from this, I was able to learn a lot about how I see robots on the television. Oh, how can Ghanaians do this? We are always lacking behind. But I see myself as another person who can bring robots to work in Ghana to help our economy as a whole.
It has had a lot of impact in my life because I've been able to learn that with teamwork and determination and persistence, you can do better, you can do much more better, because we couldn't have set the national record without teamwork. Everyone contributed to everything and we were able to come out as the best.
The Ghana Robotics Academy Foundation disclosed that at least one of the schools would be chosen to represent Ghana at the World Robotics Competition. Richard Kodunyako's report.
The Volta River Authority says it has fully discharged its obligation with regard to payment of compensation to persons whose lands were taken when the Akosombo Dam was built. The Sole Commission on Judgment Debt is investigating payments to affected claimants in a bid to prevent payment of judgment debts to dissatisfied persons in the future.
The document submitted by the VRA indicated a total of 21.6 million Ghana cedis had been paid to occupants and owners of the land on which the Akosombo Dam is situated. Payments were in the form of resettlement and cash, and according to the VRA, 52 resettlement towns were provided for those affected when the Akosombo project, covering 2 million acres, was constructed. As such, the VRA says it is no longer responsible for paying claims.
My Lord, we also want to give this evidence showing how much we had paid by way of discharging our obligation. Also, a memo from the cabinet virtually confirming that in 1971 that VRA no longer need to pay compensation, and all other issues relating to the Akosombo project would have to be budgeted for by the various agencies concerned.
The commission received documents from VRA regarding claims for compensation, which it says is necessary for its investigations.
We wanted to know whether persons who were entitled to compensation payments had been fully paid, so that judgment debt will not be developed in some years to come.
So it's just a precautionary measure.
That is it, yeah, that is it.
Though claimants still seek compensation from the VRA, the authority says compensation payments have been delegated to Lands Commission.
News Today returns after this. Yeah, welcome back to News Today. Let's now do some business stories. And Finance Minister said Tekpa is expected to negotiate with the World Bank for the release of some delayed funds. They include funds for projects outlined in the budget. The World Bank is one of the country's donor partners that has not disbursed funds meant for budget projects on time, and which has affected the government's operations. However, Joy Business has gathered the funds might not be released soon because the board of the World Bank is yet to meet to deliberate on how the funds should be disbursed. Sources say the board has had difficulties in meeting on Ghana's issues. The finance minister is leading government's delegation to the annual meeting, which opens in Washington. The paramount chief of Impohot traditional area, Saberi Makwao Enti, has asked Ghanaians to stop condemning illegal small-scale mining, also known as Galamsey. He said the sector, when properly regulated, can provide employment for many. William Benjamin Peters report from the area.
The paramount chief, whose traditional area has great mining potential, argued that until the country finds an alternative source of job creation, Galamsey would continue to be attractive to the youth. He gave figures to buttress his point, saying about 4,000 people in the traditional area are engaged in Galamsey. He proposed the development of a model program on Galamsey to regulate its operations. In line with the proposed plan, Osabere Makwao Enti believes the mining potential of the country could be effectively harnessed locally through engineered programs that will factor into account the local circumstances. He explained that government could engage graduate unemployed Ghanaians to monitor the Galamsey mining activities in all mining communities.
With these people monitoring the activities of the Galamseyers, whereby they have been asked not to go there, because these people are there, they will see to it that the boys will comply and not go to dangerous areas that cave in all the time to keep people at this Galamsey site. And by so doing, the country will also gain something to develop that, either that district or the region where those work is done. And it will help us as a country.
He also proposed the setting up of a fund through taxation from operators, which could be used to ensure the safety of the environment. He warned that any attempt to completely ban Galamsey operations in the country would deny government the huge revenue from the sector.
If the government is going to take Galamsey and add it to the GIDA as one of the models, get those people who are the varsity students who are not working, when they get them employed by Mines Department or Minerals Commission, and then they monitor the activities of these people, it will go a long way for the government to even get some funds from them. Why I'm saying so is that those people can be taxed. We have the downtrodden ones, the supervisors, and even the leaders.
Osabere Makwao Enti II said government should rebrand and change the face of Galamsey operations in the country. The district chief executive for Impoho, Anthony Basal, advocated assisting and proper equipping of the youth in Galamsey operations to legalize their activities and pay taxes to government. William Benjamin Peters report.
The International Monetary Fund has trimmed its forecast for global economic growth at the same time as lifting its UK growth projection. It now expects global growth of 2.9% this year, a cut of 0.3% from July's estimate. In 2014, it expects global growth of 3.6%, down 0.2%. The International Monetary Fund cited weakness in emerging economies for the cut. The forecast for UK growth this year received a significant upgrade to 1.4%, up from July's estimate of 0.9%. And next year, UK growth of 1.9% is now forecast up from July's projection of 1.5%. The fund said despite an improvement in growth in advanced economies such as the UK and US, a slower pace of expansion in emerging economies such as Brazil, China and India was holding back global expansion. U.S. President Barack Obama warned of the economic consequences on Tuesday of the United States defaulting on its debt payments, likely to happen if the Congress doesn't vote to raise the debt ceiling. In a news conference, the president said a default would be catastrophic, possibly pushing the U.S. economy into a deep recession.
I mean, the truth is that the parties are pretty divided on a whole bunch of big issues right now. Everybody understands that. And by the way, voters are divided on a lot of those issues too. And I recognize that there are some House members, Republican House members, where I got clobbered in the last election. And you know, they don't get politically rewarded a lot for being seen as negotiating with me. And that makes it harder for divided government to come together. But I am willing to work through all those issues. The only thing that our democracy can't afford is a situation where one side says, unless I get my way and only my way, unless I get concessions before we even start having a serious give and take, I'll threaten to shut down the government, or I will threaten to not pay America's bills. So, you know, I will not eliminate any topic of conversation. And I've shown myself willing to engage all the parties involved, every leader, on any issue. What's also true is if the markets are saying that we're not paying all our bills on time, that will affect our credit worthiness even if some people are being paid on time. So again, just to boil this down to personal examples. If you've got a mortgage, a car note, and a student loan that you have to pay, and you say, well, I'm going to make sure I pay my mortgage, but I'm not going to pay my student loan or my car note, that's still going to have an impact on your credit. Everybody's still going to look at that and say, you know what, I'm not sure this person's that trustworthy. And at minimum, presumably they're going to charge a higher interest rate. That's what would happen to you if you made those decisions. Well, the same is true for the federal government.
That'll be all for business. Sports is next and is brought to you by Tigo. In sports, Black Stars coach Kwesi Appiah has the full complements of the team he assembled for the first leg final qualifier to the 2014 FIFA World Cup against Egypt in Kumasi on October 15. The players started arriving on Sunday night. Joy Sports caught up with a few of them at the Kotoka International Airport.
We all know what the Egyptians are capable of doing, but I believe we're home in front of our fans, in front of our supporters, and what is important is that Ghana gets to the World Cup. So even whatever happens at the end of the game on Tuesday, nothing yet to be done. So we'll have to wait. It's a two-game confrontation, so we're going to prepare for that. No, we are the better side, and we are the team which are favorites against Egypt. So if we play our football and everybody is in shape, we won't have any problem by winning. I think with the fans, with their support, we're going to have if we have the same support we had the last few games, people at the stadium, the people back in Ghana, we're going to make it.
You know, we don't think about past things. Now is the thing that we have to think about, the game ahead of us. So all we have to do is to work hard, because we know it's not an easy game for us. So we need to do everything seriously from the first day. Right now, I'm ready for any game psychologically, because in this game we need to do everything that we have to do to move forward, because this our last game against them, home and away. So who is going to win, who is going to the World Cup? So it's a crucial game for us. So we need to do everything, not even me, include all the players. We need to do our best.
I think we play against them in 2010, and before the AFCON Cup we have a preparation game against them in Qatar. We won them 3-0. I remember I scored the first goal with a header, and most of their players, they didn't play that game. I think like 6 or 5 players didn't play. So I know them a bit, but I'm very comfortable on the ball, good passes of the ball, but we just have to mark them, find strategy to just beat them on Tuesday. But with the support you get in Kumasi, I don't think they can stand us. So that depends on the coach. The tactics he will use. So we just start our training sessions. We know how difficult the game is, and we know how tricks the Arab people when they come here, how they are. So just the coach will mark a strategy for us and to win the game on next week. I'm always ready, 100%, 120% ready every time.
The Ghana Football Association is requesting for a change of venue for the second leg of the Ghana-Egypt playoff. It was originally scheduled to take place in Cairo, but due to recent violence in that part of Egypt, the GFA says it would not risk the security of the Black Star players. The president of the association, Kwesi Nyantechi, has been speaking to us.
The political and security situation in Cairo, or Egypt as a country, led to that protest being lodged with FIFA. We are very much concerned about the security situation in Cairo. Just within 2 weeks, we have heard of several deaths of civilians and security officers. The recent one, which led to the death of 9 military officers as a result of attacks that were launched on them by civilians, was so alarming that we thought the situation has become so precarious and does not provide a congenial atmosphere for football. We think that FIFA must take a second look at the decision to hold the second leg match in Egypt and consider a venue outside Egypt. FIFA has acknowledged receipt of our letter and has indicated that very soon we will receive a response from them.
Arsenal manager Arsene Wenger and player Aaron Ramsey have won manager and player of the month of September respectively. Let's get the latest on that. And that's it for the segment brought to you by Tigo. In news from elsewhere, the chair of the African Union Commission signaled Tuesday she could ask the United Nations Security Council for a deferral of the International Criminal Court case against Kenya's leaders. Diplomats with knowledge of the private meeting said that AU Commission Chair Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma told the visiting Security Council delegation that the case against Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta and his Deputy President William Ruto should be deferred for 1 year. The African Union scheduled to hold an extraordinary summit Thursday and Friday about the ICC. A formal deferral request to the Council could come out of that session. The UN Security Council has the power to issue what is known as an Article 16 deferral for cases at the International Criminal Court. But such a decision would require the agreement of all 15 council members. The Kenyan president and his deputy have been charged with instigating post-election violence in 2007 and 2008 that killed more than 1,100 people and displaced more than 500,000 others. That's it for the segment. But just before we do showbiz, let's quickly go over to Kumasi and have an update on the situation that involved Joy News Erastus Donko after having been manhandled by the police while he was covering a protestation march against what some people have described as the wrongful killing of a neighbor. He was in talks with the Kumasi Police Command. Let's join Ashanti Regional Correspondent Mahmoud Mohammed Nuruddin and find out the latest on the situation. Hello, Mahmoud.
Hello, Kamini.
What's the latest with the situation with Erastus?
Okay, a few minutes ago, they asked him to write a statement to lodge a formal complaint about what happened, and he has done that. And the police are saying that they will hear from them after he has written the formal complaint what happened at the police station. So he has done that a few minutes ago, and he has met with the CID to talk with the issue.
Hello, Mahmoud.
Yeah.
And so where is Erastus now?
Erastus is standing here close.
Could we talk to him briefly if he could?
Oh, okay.
Hello, Erastus. Do I have Erastus? Well, would bring Erastus.
Yeah.
How are you? Hello, I can barely hear you, Erastus.
Yes, my God, I'm fine.
What exactly happened? The feedback is very terrible with Erastus, and we'll get exactly what happened from Erastus on our primetime bulletin at 8 p.m. Just stay on. But let's do some showbiz news now. For you out there who may be wishing him dead, veteran actor and comedian Asnaba Kweku Dako, you may know him as Super Odi says, he is going to die at age 105, and he is just 76 years old now, so you do the math. Super Odi has spoken out debunking his death rumors, assuring his fans and loved ones that he is alive and kicking.
Life is tasty.
The aging actor, who has been out of the limelight for some time now due to his ill health, was recently in the news for the same reason that he had passed on. It turned to be false, and just a couple of months after, rumors are out again that he has died. But the 76-year-old man says he is not dead. In an exclusive interview with Multi TV, Super Odi, still full of humor, told us the fact that he has been away from our screens for some time doesn't mean he is dead. He shared some fond memories about what interests him and keeps him going.
A musician, na concert. To me, I have a friend and I'm a concert. Oh, to me, you know, I'm starting a concert. Maybe either.
Meanwhile, his lawyers intend to sue the rumor mongers.
This is News Today. Let's quickly. Well, let's go just before we recap our headlines. I believe Erastus is back on the telephone. Let's talk to him quickly about what happened. Erastus, I was asking earlier, how are you doing? Erastus, how are you?
I'm okay.
We thank God for that. But what exactly happened?
Well, it was when we had finished covering the demonstration. There was tear gas and everything. I was building my iPad and in front of the police station. Then the police officer asked my meeting there. I said I was a girl. So I gave him a name and where I went. But he wanted an ID card, which wasn't on me at the time. So I told him that. But then he came out of the seat, so held my neck and started pushing me towards the starter. Then other not giving me any reason except to say that they are locking me up behind the counter. Then at a point in time, one held my trouser and started dragging me on the floor. So my trousers are on, the buttons are off. So it was at that moment that some officers from the Central Police came in and they said they don't need so they could just leave me. And they gave my gadgets back.
And so they had to take you to the police station. Why did they think they had to do that?
I don't know, because I was asking the gentleman why he was taking me to the charge of the the more I asked, the more he got infuriated. And then he said I was trying to challenge them. And so they wouldn't tell me why, but they are taking me to the charge office. And I asked why. They said, I'm holding my iPad and I'm taking pictures of them. I said, I haven't taken any pictures. They still will not understand me. So the more people came in and they were heckling me here and there, pushing me up and down, holding my dress. And at a point I was even half naked. Some are holding me like my shirt up, and some were holding my trousers by the back and pushing me up like that.
That's sad. Do you have your properties back?
Now they're giving it back.
I see. How do you feel about all of these things that happened to you?
I feel one, very embarrassed, shocked, and at a point I didn't know why they were doing that, so I was distressed.
In your interaction with them, what did they tell you? Earlier, we were made to understand that you were in a meeting with the police command. What did they tell you?
Well, in effect, what they've been telling me is that in a situation, a riot situation like that, anything at all could happen. And so they advised me to always keep my ID card with me for purposes of identification. And what a crime officer is saying is that he is not endorsing what they did. And at the appropriate time, they will invite me to identify the officers involved, and they will take action. But they are advising me that in a situation like that, I should wear some identification attire or have my eyes very clear. So we don't experience something like that again.
Notwithstanding whether you had your ID card or not, this kind of descending on an unarmed civilian like yourself is uncalled for. What do you intend to do about this?
I intend to, in fact, the listener DJ has come in as well. They've spoken to me and they intend to come as well. I intend to also investigate further. I'm looking at what the police will come up with, and then I'll know the next time about it. Even after the officers had intervened, this officer who tore my trousers was standing here and insulting me, telling me that if I have not taken pictures of them and she's putting me up, I shouldn't be standing there and be fooling around.
Sad.
And so I think that is, you know, violating my rights with impunity.
Erastus, I'm sure we could talk more, but unfortunately we would have to leave it here. And remember, whatever you do, we always have got your back. That'll be all for this just a quick recap of our headlines. And Noguchi Memorial Institute for Medical Research has discovered 2 plant compounds with capability of curing sleeping sickness. U.S. President Barack Obama says he is open to broad budget talks and a potential short-term debt limit. Chair of the African Union Commission signals she could ask the United Nations Security Council for a deferral of the ICC's case against Kenyan leaders. Thanks for watching. My name is Kimini Nyamani Amana. Goodbye.